So, the sunlight of two suns shining on a planet. Interesting. Looks like that sunlight is very powerful since it generates so much power through the solar panels, more so than Earth's sun. Since anyone with any brains knows that gravity is simply an electromagnetic attraction between two bodies. And since that attraction can be translated into a frequency, my mother, Anna, her task was simply to keep the shell vibrating at a frequency which would allow attraction of a specified magnitude. The trick was going to be forecasting that magnitude as related to the force of attraction by two suns. This was further complicated by the fact that the suns were different sizes. However, setting the entry apex further from the largest of the two would help control that problem. Something in the back of her mind kept needling her. She knew she had the perfect solution, but she needed to get away from the problem to let it surface. She knew exactly what she needed. She called Paul on the comlink and told him to meet her at the apartment. He wasn't really busy at the moment, and her technoids were working on the link up to the shell, so they had an hour to kill. They had been catching time together for any little bit of time here and there for so long that it was natural order of things. Besides, Anna was in such a high state of excitement that it wasn't going to take much. If she had been able to conceive, they would probably have kids running all over the city. But that's another story. Dr. Torvitska strode briskly into the lab, a control center, a dazzling smile on her face and a flush to her skin, quite familiar to her team. Hi, Doc. We're just about to run the test sequence on the link up to the shell. Have a good time? She just kept smiling and walked to her station. Robbie, I believe I have the solution to moving between the two suns. We'll generate a fluctuation in the frequency to create a rotational effect in the shell, essentially rotating the outer shell while the city is still stationary. It should create a magnetic vortex which will walk us right through to the planet. Her lead technoid got an immediate scowl on his face. He hated being called by his boyhood nickname, but knew it was her way of getting him for the good time comment. Sounds good to me, Doc. Are you ready to start the sequence? Paul took a 2-hour walk through the city, checking on the safety and comfort of the inhabitants of his small world. He had to use his gravity boots and handholds to get around, but he jumped when he needed to, so travel was easy. He carried a light cell with him because all unneeded systems were being shut down one at a time to route all the power to the shell. He was damn proud of his work, and he and his team had done to fabricate this city ship from the solid silica rock of Mars. Their design was simple, sound, and strong enough to break the hold of Mars gravity without so much as a crack in the supports. Laser-fused silica and steel substrata was just one more of the radical technologies Anna had helped create and develop. His lady doc was doing her usual splendid job of handling the technical aspects of the Crystal City space transport. Today he needed her to be better than she had ever been, so he had indulged her even though he wasn't really comfortable with being away from the control station for that much time. As they neared the double ellipse solar system, Anna's frequency modulation of the outer shell seemed to be working. They were traveling smoothly toward the apex where they would use the sun's magnetic fields to accelerate toward the planet just enough to gain orbit. Paul was keeping a sharp eye on the data display showing their progress. He'd been flying this crazy spaceship far too long to believe everything was just fine. Any second it could go all sideways and they'd be in a heap of shit real quick. He wasn't a bit surprised when their flying city began to pitch and yaw, very gently at first, almost imperceptibly, growing in intensity with each fluctuation of the frequency through the shell. He snapped on the comm link to Anna's station. He didn't even have a chance to speak before her voice came on, cold as space. We are fully aware of the occurrence and are making the necessary adjustments as we speak. Please don't bother me again. His comm link snapped off. However, the radical movement of the city did not. It increased in amplitude as a steady rhythmic pulse till he was strapping himself in. Ted had already hit the lockdown alarm, so Paul knew the entire population was doing the same, strapping down babies, throwing loose items into lockers, and jumping into the lockdown seats. This was the first time it had been real, even though they had done the drill hundreds of times over the past 8 years of their journey. Paul knew the motion of the city ship would wreak havoc with the senses of the occupants, causing all kinds of negative physical responses. He was fighting down the desire to puke his own guts out when Crystal City suddenly seemed to get her feet under her and began to settle down to a steady oscillating hum followed by a rhythmic vibration. The odd thing was that he felt the ship steadily accelerating, like igniting a takeoff assist booster on a ship breaking out of gravity. He hesitated only for a fraction of a second, then hit his comm link again. Anna spoke clearly, not even a hint of apprehension in her voice. Yes, Paul. He dove right in. Anna, we are accelerating through the apex? And if we are, please explain to me how we will decelerate into planetary orbit and atmospheric entry. She answered with a gentle patience Paul knew to be her I got it figured out voice. Well, the numbers for our acceleration deceleration weren't coming up, so I increased our speed toward the apex by letting the suns pull us toward them. The same force we are using for that will act like a rubber band, slowing us down on the other side till we finally achieve entry speed, at which time I will release us from their pull, thereby allowing us the perfect orbital and entry speeds without expending a single ounce of our fuel ore for the entire operation. Pretty cool, huh? She certainly has a gift for understatement, Paul thought. Excellent job as usual, my dear. I'm going to check on the people to see how bad the motion sickness is. I'll have my comm link with me. Thanks for the update. He swung wide to let his feet out of the tiny desk area and stood up, a bit shakily at first. Ted was at the citywide comm link station when Paul stepped up. Let's get us a citywide sit rep, Ted. I'd like to keep an eye on our people just to avoid any potential panic areas. Ted was already on top of it. Already done, boss. All stations checked in with no problems. We got some pretty tough colonists down there. I'm damn proud to be a part of this whole thing. Paul always appreciated Ted's glass half full attitude. That's my boy, Ted. Good job as usual. And that was the end of the first day on the Crystal City hollowed out rock space. spaceship. Now we begin the second day. Paul's comlink snapped, and Anna came on, speaking with a strange, unfamiliar sound in her voice. He thought it sounded like fear. But this was Anna, and she didn't know the meaning of fear. Paul, I need you here immediately, please. I need to show you something. Get down here right now, please. Then she was gone. Paul jumped to the walkway, yelling to his crew over his shoulder as he went. Ted, you got control. Emily, you got second. I'll be back when I find out what's going on down in the lab. He was through the hatchway and down the 4 ladders before he even thought about it. Then sprinting down the narrow passage till he busted through the lab door, breathing hard, but as alive as he had felt in years. Doc, what the hell's going on? Anna turned toward him, her face ashen, fear and panic filling her eyes. Paul, I don't know what happened. I don't know what went wrong. I had it all figured out. But then our acceleration curve went all crazy and I can't get a fix on our apex because the curve is all wrong. So I don't know where we will slow down on the other side. And if that happens, we will burn up in the entry of the whole city will be destroyed and it will all be my fault. Paul, I have killed this whole project with my arrogance and my pride, and I'm so ashamed. She burst into tears and fell into his arms, trembling all over. Her technoids were standing like statues, staring at her open mouth. They had never thought of her as human, much less as vulnerable. Yet here she was, sobbing in the arms of the boss, like a child being held by her father. It's all right, baby doll. You just stay right here next to me, and we'll get our Crystal City settled down to a slow walk instead of this sprint across space, okay? Come on now, stop your crying and give your Papa Bear a little smile. The technoids were even more astounded at this display of unintelligible nonsense. They simply continued to stare in utter confusion. Anna snipped a couple of times, looked into Paul's eyes, and gave him just the tiniest bit of a smile. Her lips were always swollen and rosy when she cried, and he just couldn't help crushing them into a soft kiss. It was the first time he had ever done such a thing in front of anyone, but it had to be done. She immediately responded to him, twisting toward him on his arm, pressing herself against his chest. Oh, baby, I'll calm down if you promise to stay here with me and help me work this out. You keep me calm. I can think when you're here with me. Paul had never seen her this way, but then the city had never been completely in her hands before. He gently settled her into a chair, then turned to the technoids. Okay, people, get to your stations and get ready to work your butts off. We're going to figure this thing out and get this ship under control right now. I'll be here for the duration of the event. Let's get to work. His voice was soft, yet commanding, giving everyone in the room a sense of security and purpose. He snapped on his comm link to control station. Ted, I'll be here with the doc for the next few hours, so you keep on top of things up there. Emily, take your station, and you take control station. Thanks, man. All right, people, where do we start? Anna, you said you couldn't figure out the acceleration curve. I will ask stupid questions that you may have already considered so that we can stimulate a possible thought link to the real problem. Okay, here we go. Let us consider the gravity multiplication of the two suns, the rotational pull of the planet on the far side, the possibility of another planet we can't see, or the elements of the unknown frequency of the two suns generating a gravity field completely separate from themselves, yet a result of their magnetic fields. Let's see, what else could you have missed? As Paul paused in his discussion, he saw Anna staring into the deep distance of space, her mind doing billions of calculations per second, and was delighted to see the familiar look of genius at work. Suddenly she screamed, jumped to her feet, grabbed the first technoid she bumped into, and danced a jig. That's it, Paul. You're a genius. You amaze me. How could someone who has no education or ability in physics come up with the answer we needed? Stay with me while I figure this out. She turned to a bank of computers and began madly typing calculations. Paul was dumbfounded. What did I say? What? What was it? What is the answer? What? What? She waved him off and continued her typing until Paul thought the keyboard would start to smoke. Just as suddenly she was finished and watched the screen as a beautiful parabolic cone began to take shape, looking like the horn of plenty he had seen from pictures in his childhood. She turned to him, grabbed him with all her strength, and began to kiss him lustily, passionately, till he couldn't breathe. He fought her off as she laughed gleefully. Anna, tell me what happened right now. She had seen that side of him before, so she settled down to a serious explanation of what had happened.